This is Helen Boarts,
Right.
and she's going to be our narrator, and my name is Connie Rufner, and I'm the interviewer for this interview. So, Helen, when were you born?
I was born in Ross.
Okay.
Yes.
Just down the river.
Yeah, down on the river. But I don't remember that. I think I was a year, 18 months old when we moved to Fort City.
Okay.
And I lived in the same house till I got married. I was 22 when I got married.
What year were you born?
1927.
So you remember the Depression. You were young, but you remember.
Yes, I remember I got sent to Roston to my grandparents, and my baby brother was born. And my mother almost died. I can remember four of us actually, sitting on a couch crying, and Mrs. McIntosh came in with a bottle of whiskey. That was the medicine, cure for all.
Uh-huh.
And I remember that. Well, that was the year the snuff, I should say my brother Ernest was born, and we called him Snuff. And our grandparents had a little store in Boston, and he had evidently extended too much credit because he went bankrupt. I don't know what they called it back then, and he and Grandma moved in with us. And he had arthritis, rheumatic arthritis, and they carried him up the steps in a chair and put him in the bedroom next to the bathroom, and they carried him back down 3 years later.
Oh my.
He sat there, and I thought, what? I'm trying to think, what was his life like? He had a rocking chair in there, and he had give us money to go down to the 5 and 10, and we'd buy hard candy. And now, if you did anything for him, you were allowed to get a piece of that candy.
Oh.
Yes. Well, at that time, with a new baby and 2 more, and Daddy went on relief. Ruth, my sister, told me he was selling insurance, but he wasn't doing too good of a job. But he went on relief. But back then, you had to pay it back.
Oh.
Yes, any money. And I got 2 dresses. I had a pink one and a blue one. They were made the same. But my sister got one out of the money. And also, I have to tell you about somebody was stealing the milk.
Your milk?
Yeah, on the front porch. And it kept going on, and so my dad caught him, and he threatened to have him arrested if he said any more milk's gone, he was going to turn him in. But he never, and he would never say who. No more milk was gone.
So he stopped.
And my dad trapped. He also had a garden. We had a garden in our backyard. Oh, with the lettuce and tomatoes and the carrots and the beets and what all. And then he had a garden on the Roston Island.
Oh. Yeah.
Well, it used to be that you could almost wade across to the Roston Island. And he had a garden, and he grew corn, potatoes, and beans, and I don't remember anything else. We all had gardens.
Yeah.
Oh, I have to tell you, I told you Rudy Petrovsky lived next door. And they had a garden, but we used to play Run Sheepy Run. And so we were playing this one night, and the next day, Marie told me, she said, I want to show you something. Here she showed me. Rudy had planted 12 tomato plants. And we had run through the yard. And there were all those footprints. But none of the tomato plants. They were perfect.
So you didn't hit the tomato plants? Now tell us, how do you play Run Sheepy Run?
Now you're asking the wrong question there.
Oh, really? You don't remember?
All I know is you had two teams.
Uh-huh.
And you ran and you chased each other, but other than that, I tried to get my sister to tell me, and we used to play kick the can down on 13th Street.
Uh-huh.
There wasn't very much traffic. Well, you know, there wasn't that much traffic especially during the war.
Uh-huh.
But that we kicked the can across the street. But that I don't remember. Run Sheepy Run. That's
teams running away from each other.
You had teams.
Uh-huh.
And you chased. That's all I can tell you.
Actually sounds like fun.
It was. Yes. And, I have to tell you about the hobos.
Okay.
Now, that was during the Depression. I told you Rudy lived next door, and Marie, well, it wasn't too strange to see a man sitting on the back steps eating.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how they knew. Jeff says they had a code.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That they would, they didn't come to our house,
Uh-huh.
but they went to Marie's, Wachowski's, and she always fed them.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But then Rudy had a good job at Greenbaum.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he worked there. And my mother told me one time that if it wasn't for Rudy at Wachowski's, we wouldn't have had anything for Christmas. But my dad tracked.
Uh-huh.
Down in Mill Run and down at Roston Island down there. And he got muskrats, and he got one year that was real black. And he thought it was a black mint, but he sold them to Sears.
Ah.
And if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have had any Christmases. That was Christmas, what paid for Christmas. And I can remember getting in the stocking, you got a tangerine. That's the only time.
That you got tangerine.
And mixed nuts, in the shells. That was in the stockings. And I got a doll. One year, I can remember one doll, one present. I don't know what anybody else got. Somebody must have gotten a ball because my brothers did something they weren't allowed to do. They played ball in the house, and they hit the chin of my doll, broke it.
Oh.
But my grandma said, I told her she lived with us, and she sent to Sears and got a new head, and she sewed it back on. So I had my doll. But then my Snuffy, when he came along, he carried it around, and the other boys teased him. He was a sissy. So she made him pants and a shirt. No, my grandmother she was at our house part of the time. Grandpa was there all the time, but she was, I think you would call her a caregiver now, but she was a midwife there, and I got bawled out at my grandmother's funeral for not calling this lady because Grandma had delivered her baby, and it was a preemie, and she put it in a dresser drawer, wrapped up with hot water bottles, and kept it alive. So, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, and Grandma, we made apple butter in the backyard, a great big pot. She made pear butter. She made ketchup. And she made the best donuts. And we used to sit on the back porch with the holes in a bag with sugar and we ate the holes when we were little, yeah. And she had a loom in the basement. She made rag rugs. She would get all the rags and she also bought stuff too. I helped her thread the loom one time, but I don't think she ever asked me again. and there was Ruth and I slept in the attic because Grandpa was in the one bedroom, but Grandma had a quilt frame and she had a sewing machine, and she made a lot of my dresses, and she cut the patterns out of a newspaper, and it was like a slip the front, and then a skirt,
Uh-huh.
and then a little jacket over with, I don't know how many buttons.
Uh-huh.
And you know, when we went to school, you did not wear pants.
Uh-huh.
You wore dresses or skirts.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, yeah. She
Was
made.
it cold in the winter?
Pardon?
Were your legs cold in the winter?
Yeah. Yeah. You wore bobby socks.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But I didn't have that far to walk to school. And the kids from up on the hill, we went to school from 8:30 to 12, and then we had an hour off. Well, I lived in 1330 4th Avenue, and you know, that wasn't that far to walk. But those kids would walk home for lunch and walk back down. The steps were on 12th Street, and I think there was steps down at the lower end.
Uh-huh.
But those kids would walk for lunch. There were no cafeterias.
So they walk up over the hill.
Yeah, for lunch and come back, and we got out at 4:00. Yeah, long time ago. And when I went to, well, we're talking about the, there goes my mind. The recession, the depression.
The depression, yeah.
Well, what do I have on that?
You were going to tell us about the margarine.
Oh, the margarine, it came white.
Uh-huh.
And it was a little thing of coloring, yellow coloring in it. And you mixed it up with your hands. I suppose you could have used spoons, but we... And like I say, I assume our mother made us wash our hands before we did that.
But you don't remember.
No, I don't remember. But this was during the war. You made cookies. I made, they were called Toll House cookies, but they are chocolate chip cookies.
Mm-hmm.
And you got a pound of walnuts, and you cracked them and cut them. And your bits, they were just a big candy bar with little squares.
Oh.
And you had to cut those.
Oh.
And that was my job, making Toll House cookies. You were sending boxes to the overseas. You had to get a letter from, my brother would send a letter that he wanted a package. Then you could take that to the post office and mail your package. Otherwise, you weren't allowed to mail.
Oh.
Yeah. And that was my job, making those cookies, and then Mom made filled cookies. And, yeah. But back in the Depression, I don't remember too much more about that. But the war, I can remember. I was over in Arners, and Shirley and I were in a sunroom listening to the radio, and it came on that the Japanese had bombed Pearl Harbor. And and Dale came home, and we told him. He says, nah. Yeah, but then it came on the radio, and I had gone home, and yeah, they had heard it too. And then in school the next, I don't know, that would have been Sunday, the school next day, we all went into the gym, and we listened to the president declare war. Yeah. And yeah.
So tell us about, you were telling us about D-Day.
Oh, well, that's that. But my brother Russell joined, he enlisted.
Uh-huh.
And he went to be, he wanted to be a pilot, but they had too many other people being pilots. So he was good in math. He graduated in 37, and he was only 16, and he was 17 in July. But he had gone to Ralston School, and he had skipped second grade. So that's why he wanted to be a pilot, but he couldn't. So and he ended up he had 27 missions, and he didn't come home right away, and he was the group navigator. And he was there till the end of the war. And they lost his trunk.
Uh-huh.
And it came back after the war. Well, he had to return some instruments that were to the navigator. He had to get them. But he had a big box of Hershey candy bars. But also right beside it was some package of soap. So you know what we had to do? We had to throw those candy bars away.
Because they smelled like soap instead of chocolate.
They would have tasted like
Yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah, but on D-Day, I had my appendix out. In the old hospital, yes. And you went in the night, well, I'll go back to when I went to gym. In my junior year, the first time I went to gym, we had exercises, and my side acted up, and I went to Dr. Allison, and he said I had appendicitis, and I got excused from gym the whole year, and then I had got my appendix out, and it happened to be D-Day. And there was we were semi-private room, but there was also, her name was Klingensmith too, Mrs. Klingensmith. I think she was from Mount Kelly Station. And this Mrs. White, she had a son that was a German prisoner. And they didn't want her to know about it. And they didn't bring her in the morning, but everybody was talking about it. And I asked what happened, and they told me it was D-Day. And I opened my big mouth and put my foot in. Yeah, so, but I know he came home. James White came home eventually, yeah. So, but this is
This is the hospital bill.
yeah, this is a hospital.
Okay. And this is for the appendectomy. And you can see that the total was $75. Which you said you made when you started working at the
Forest City Pharmacy.
At the pharmacy. You made less than $20 a week. So this $75 would have been somewhere around maybe a month's wages for the appendectomy. Mm-hmm. And people had to just tell us about that there wasn't insurance. People just paid for it.
Oh yes, I have here. My dad had to pay some of the money on the hospital bill before they would even admit you. You had to pay, I think you had to pay as long as you stayed. So that would be, and Dr. McClister, there's a Daddy paid $20 there. That's from the operation, and here's 20 more to Dr. McClister. And there's 20 more.
Okay, so he paid it off in like $20 at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which you could do. I mean,
Yeah.
it's month's wages is a whole different thing than 2 years' wages.
Yeah, what's this? It's Dr. There was Dr. McClister's, $80. So that's paying Dr. McClister. Yeah. Yeah, there's another one.
Do you remember how long you were in the hospital?
Well, it tells you on that
Oh, on this one, okay.
from 5 to, well, you went in the night before, so.
So you were in like 10 days.
Yeah.
And it was $4.75 a day.
Mm-hmm.
And then they charged you for the operating room, and they charged you for the anesthesia and for the laboratory.
$5. Can you imagine going to the hospital and paying $5 for a lab?
You paid $5 for a Tylenol.
And this is my grandfather's funeral expenses here. Yeah, now, it was Wendell's father, I think.
J.C. Welsh.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're still the Welshes, but it's Bob now. So the casket was $150. The embalming was $15. The hearse was $15. So the whole thing was $221.50. And they did the whole Megillah. I mean, nowadays, that would run
you had to pay for
$10,000 easy.
You had to pay for the pallbearer's gloves.
Uh-huh.
There. This is a receipt.
Oh, so they charged you for the suit and things.
Yeah. Look at what they charged you for a suit.
Suit and hose, $21.25. Underwear, shirt, and tie, $2.25. Pallbearer's gloves, $3.
That would be six. What's they have 6? And here is this is for a lot in the Fort City Cemetery, $30. And this is $12 for digging the grave. And back then they probably didn't have any backhoe.
I'm not going to show these to the camera because they're so faint. I don't think they would show up. Wow.
And here she paid $150, and then she's paid in full.
And people paid cash pretty much for everything back then. Everything was cash. That's why there's all of these cash receipts, because that's no debit cards, not even checks. Okay, this is so great. We haven't seen anything like these, and that's so interesting because it is so different. It's so different that people paid in cash and got a written receipt, and what the prices were, and compared to today.
Oh, yes.
Now, you had perfect attendance at school.
12 years perfect attendance. But I only have coupons, seals for 7. I was told, my mother told me that they quit giving them, they quit giving those.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you stopped getting. Now, you were saying, because I said, I don't think I could have done 12 years because I had the flu and I had different things.
Well, I had I had three ahead of me, and I had the chicken pox and the measles and the whooping cough. In fact, we all 4 had whooping cough at the same time, because Mom said at night she would go to one bedroom and my dad would go to the other bedroom. So we had all of those before I went to school. So all I had in school was colds.
And you can go with a cold.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I would take my dad's big hankies with me at school, because we didn't have Kleenex back then. So, yes.
And your mom's hankies were little.
Yeah,
Your dad had the big ones.
Big ones. And, well, in school, I have here some basketball season tickets for 41 and 42 and 42 and 43 years.
So, and you said 1 year, for
1
the
year
41 years.
There's 10 games, and it's $1.25 for the ticket. And the next year, there was only 8 games, and it's still $1.25.
So that's how they raised the prices, by cutting the number of games.
Yes. And I have to tell you about air raid. That they had. I don't remember how often we had them, but I just remember the one because I got in trouble. I opened a refrigerator door just as the air raid warden went by.
Oh.
And I got yelled because the light shone. But I don't remember how often we had them.
You remember that one.
Well, I definitely remember that one because I got in trouble. And I remember Now, I don't know when it was, whether it was during the Depression or during the war, but I don't know whether we didn't have we had a refrigerator during the war, so it must have been back in the Depression. Mom had made a big bowl of Jell-O with fruit in it, and it was put out in the back porch. And we had ours at supper time, but Russell wasn't there, so his share was put back out in the bowl. But when Russell came home to get it, somebody had scooped it out. He didn't get it. So my mother said they must have been hungry. Yes. Yeah. But during the war, Russell was, told you he went, and then my brother, I call him Jeep, his name's Meade. But he graduated in 43, and he got drafted in August. And he went in the Air Force, and he was a ball turret gunner on a B-24. Russell flew in a B-17 from England, and Jeep flew from Italy. But when the war ended, he only had 23 missions, but they considered some of them, I'm talking about the war in Europe. When it ended, he had 23, but some of them were long enough, they classed, that he didn't have to go to the
Pacific.
He came home, yes. Yeah. So, my grandmother pierced my sister's ears. I have mine pierced, but I had a doctor do it in the 70s. So, but this was back. Ruth was in high school, and she pierced them when she had a big needle with cord, not thread, cord, string, and she pushed that needle through with a big cork, and she had a loop like an earring, and then she would turn that. She would pull it to turn. And I don't know how many other people, and I thought, I am never going to get my ear pierced watching that. But Grandma did somebody, a neighbor's ears. She did a lot of people's, but this one, and she kept getting infected. But so Grandma never would touch anybody. She wouldn't. She wouldn't. But now we know that she was probably allergic to the metal. But back then,
you didn't know that.
Yeah, so Grandma didn't do that. I'll have to tell you about Centipole store.
Okay, yeah.
It was there forever, as far as I can remember. And Grandma and Grandpa and Rosie. Well, Jenny was there, but Jenny was there more towards the end when I was going. But you went there, and they didn't have any bags. You come home with carrying everything in your arms. But ice cream you got 2 scoops for 5 cents. Now, if you got a ice cream cone, that was okay. But if you got any more, you had to bring a bowl. Like Ruth said about going up with 15 cents, and you got 6 scoops of ice cream. And well, there were 5 of us, but I don't know who had the 6th one. Yeah, cents. Yeah, and you charge stuff there, and when Daddy would pay the bill, he would come home with a bag of penny candy. Yes. Oh, they were there for a long, as long as I can remember.
Where were they at? Where were they located?
On Fourth Avenue, up past 14th Street. In fact, the building's still there.
What's in it now? Do you know? What's in it now?
As I don't know. The last I knew, some of the Centipoles were still living there.
Really?
But I have been out of Fort City for a long time. But I knew at one time they were. And then Sam had, he was a Frasino, but he was Jenny's son, and he had the little store on the corner for I don't know how many years. Sam had the store. But then I was in Katanning by that time, so yeah. Oh yeah, they were this store, Grandma and Grandpa. Yeah, I can remember carrying the stuff home. And candy bars were a nickel. And popsicles were a nickel. And there used to be a jingle. I won't sing it for you, but it was Pepsi-Cola hits the spot, 12 full ounces. That's a lot. Twice as much for a nickel too. Pepsi-Cola is a drink for you. Nickel, nickel, nickel.
Everything was a nickel.
Yeah, 12 ounces too. And well, when I worked in a pharmacy, now that was after the war, chocolate sundaes were 15 cents. And if you had little, what we called Spanish peanuts, it was 20 cents. But if you had mixed nuts on it, it was 25 cents. But I don't remember the rest of the prices. But we used to make lemonade and put it in a freezer and sold it as slush. It was good. But I don't remember how much the drinks were.
So the pharmacy was your first job out of high school?
Oh, I worked for this, but that's after the war, so. Yeah.
Well, that's okay. Tell us.
I helped, Paul's aunt was a school nurse, Mary Elder, and I worked as a clerk, and when they did the school examinations, I sat and filled out the and I think got 50 cents for that, each student. That would be after 49, being early 50s. Yeah, I worked in Bethel schools and over in Cadogan and Worthington. And I went to Freeport, but not with Aunt Mary, with another nurse, school nurse. Yeah, that's a long time ago. Yeah, that was my jobs. Then I babysat my grandkids when they were born, but that's past. Yeah. All righty, I think I have everything I told you.
What's the newspaper?
Oh, I forgot about that. That is the high school paper.
This is really a nice paper. Our high school papers weren't anywhere near this good.
I want to show you. Maybe you have the one that I want to show you specifically. No. Well, in school we saved tin cans, grease. I don't know what the grease was for, and junk. Where the cannon is, it was just piled high of junk. All right. Here, this is the one I want to show you.
Okay. During the school week of February 12th to February 16th, the Ford City High School held a drive to collect funds for the building of a public library. That is great to have. That is great to have. We'll take a photograph of that for sure.
Well, these were the glasses. I don't remember how often they put them out, but I have, 1, 2, 3. And we were having one of our class reunions, and I got a call. Did I remember who was president of our senior year? And I says, no, I didn't remember. But I said I had some old glasses, and I did find out Tom Eddy was the president, and I called. So I said I had some of the, and they said, well, would I come to a meeting and bring them? So that's why they're in sad shape. And when we went to the reunion, the master ceremony, he got all of his stuff out of these glasses.
Oh, really?
It tells you on one of them about the milkweed here. Yeah, it tells you how many bushels milkweed they used to put life preservers.
They put milkweed fluffy stuff.
Yeah, they used it in life preservers.
Wow.
And then there's one of these with the kids say you took money and bought stamps, and you got so many stamps and you got a bond. And with them, we got 2 training. It's in one of these. They bought 2 training planes, 15,000. 15,000, yeah. They got enough for 2 of these. They were just trainers. They didn't have guns or anything.
Right.
We made that, yes.
So you knew what your money, or you knew what your work was going towards.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this was graduating class, senior year, valedictorian. Oh, Russell was in the first 10. Ruth was in the first 10. And Jeep was valedictorian. And Snuff and I only made upper half class.
Good enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. I can't remember who they were, but there were 2 Hollywood stars came, gave us a pep talk on buying bonds and stuff. But it's not on any of these.
And you don't remember who it was?
Nah, it's a man and a lady, but I should have asked my sister, maybe she would have remembered, but we could have it. Oh yeah, some of this in the paper is foolish, but a lot of it, like I say, that's war. And I was telling you about when I was in school, I don't know what year, but we went in a school bus out to Crooked Creek to watch them break ground for the dam. And I can remember walking to the lower end of Ford City, got out of school early, and walking down the lower end and watched the water coming in, but it didn't come in that year. We didn't have the flood. But,
So did the river flood a lot when you were young?
I can remember more ice. The ice than the river coming. But my mother told about, they lived near the post office in one of those double houses. And she told about moving the stuff up the second floor. Because the water came in, yeah. But I don't know what year that was either. That was before me. Yeah, so, yeah.
So why did they call the paper the Glass It? GLAS dash.
I have no, well, at that
Something
time,
about PPG.
well, also, the school, the girls, I guess the girls, my mind. The teams were the Glassers.
Oh, okay. Okay.
When I first went to school, they were the Ducks. And I have a picture of my sister-in-law. Her mother raised ducks, and she went to the football games with one of those ducks on a leash with a purple and gold ribbon on its neck. Yeah, they were the Ducks. And this time they were the Glassers.
Like the Steelers.
Yeah, they were the Glassers. What are they now?
Sabres. Now they're the Sabres.
No. When I went to school, they were the Ducks and then the Glassers.
So the name got scarier as they went along. Ducks aren't very scary.
And I brought these along too. These are name cards. I think I have one of everybody in a senior class. And my sister said she graduated in 40, and they did the same thing. you got these, I don't know how much they cost. This is the box that came in.
Uh-huh.
And these are all from the kids in my class.
And it's just their name on it.
Yeah, just her name on it. Name cards. What was behind them, I don't remember. No.
But everybody got cards.
Yeah, I think everybody that could afford them.
Uh-huh.
You know, well, things were better then. Yeah. Yeah, these are.
So what did your dad do when the war started? Did he get a different job then?
Yeah, he worked at the PPG.
Uh-huh.
He was a glass cutter, and then he was an inspector. And then I don't know. He got glasses. I don't know whether he wasn't catching everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I know the last he worked, he followed a crane. Now, what exactly mean? I don't know, but he wore big leather gloves because of one of them broke and cut him on a wrist. And then he had, his arm went numb, and they thought that's what it was from. But it wasn't. He had a malignant brain tumor.
Oh.
And back then, they operated, and he died months to the day they operated on him. And they sent him home to die. So, back then. That was back in 56. Yeah. But now, it's a lot different.
Yeah, there's a lot more they can do now.
Oh, yes. My brother Jeep had lung cancer. He died 10 years to the day my dad died. He had lung cancer. He did not smoke, but he got it someplace else. And he spent his last 7 weeks in a hospital. And it went in his backbone. And he was very miserable. He was pain. And then my brother Russell, and he was 72, and he has a bag. But he's 92. He had chemo and radiation. And next year or so, I had ovarian cancer, but I got it in stage 1. So that's 19 years ago. And my sister had 80. She had breast cancer. We all had everybody a different place.
And you're still alive.
Ruth and the three of us, yes.
See, that's remarkable.
Yeah.
So you went from seeing people where it was a death sentence
Yeah.
to you yourself
Oh, yeah.
have outlived it.
Yeah. Well, and I caught mine, and they caught mine in stage 1. Paul asked me to my daughter was coming with 2 great dogs, and it was like this much snow on the deck. And he said, he didn't have time to shovel wood on it, and it twisted. Yeah, and that's how I caught it. Or else,
You wouldn't have known until it was too late.
I wouldn't have known it, and
Yeah.
probably wouldn't be here. Yeah. So anyway, these were, it tells you something about, and when we graduated in 45, and we were sacrificed, we did not have a yearbook. Paper, we also took paper to school too. But paper was shortage, and I'm 85. That's my excuse anyway. And so we gave up, and we had a little picture and a writing in the 44 yearbook. We don't have a yearbook for that reason. Yeah. Yeah. And there was something else I was going to tell you we did at school, but it slipped my mind. But that one made me think of it. So they have a write-up on everybody. And my nickname was Kling. I wouldn't know why.
So your brothers had all these different nicknames. You're the one whose nickname was Kling?
Well, my brother Russell, Russell read the newspaper, the funny papers to my young Snuffy, and he was 7 years older, and he was Dag, but his name didn't stick. But you know how the Dagwood sandwiches. Yeah, and Jeep was in Popeye. There was this little. Sometimes it was visible, and sometimes it was Jeep, Jeep, Jeep. Well, he went around. It was his class play. He was in it, and he had what do you call it? The program. And he's got Jeep, 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 Jeep all around. In fact, after he died, the kids wrote Jeep on the garage. And but he was Jeep. And Snuffy was, Russell read him the papers, and he would say, Snuffy Smith, and he would say, he's going to dust a rifle ball off your pumpkin head. That's what Snuffy Smith would say. So he was Snuffy Smith. And then it was Snuffy. And then it was just Snuff. Yeah. That stuck. Yeah. But, and I was just clean. Well, I was surprised. The lady that, her husband was the pilot of Jeep's crew. And he was down, and she sent a letter to, she sent it to our hold address. Well, Bartolovich, Seal Bartolovich bought the house. And they sent it, but I forget what his name was, but he got it. But Pete Klingensmith was in my class at school. And she took it, and she said that was our family. So I got the letter, and she wanted to know about Jeep, and her husband had been hit in one of the planes, and he was in the shoulder or something, and he was not the pilot all the time. I think he got discharged, but she was wanting to know. She was writing a history of all the people that were in. And I told her, I said, Jeep, and she says, who? I says, oh, he wasn't Jeep. And she asked her husband, no, he was clean.
He was clean.
He was clean, yeah. Well, if you got a name Klingensmith, you're clean.
You will be clean, yeah.
So, yeah, see, but she did. She made I have it at home, an album of all the people that were in his crew. And Russell got a hold of them, and they talked back and forth about the war. Yeah, and like I say, Russell's the only one left in his crew. Yeah, I've got pictures with the names on them in the crews. Yeah. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you so much. This has been great.